going to be talking about one of the worst pitches for a cartoon ever, like, at all. This is just awful. It was pitched by a YouTuber called, well, you already know if you know anything about this project, the Mysterious Mr. Enter, who, for some reason, really thinks this idea is good. It's not. It's existential horror more than anything. Despite this being a passion project, this has been in the works for a very long time. Almost, yeah, exactly 10 years of now. So that's why I'm talking about it now, because it's really, well, I think it's just interesting. Sometimes I don't want to talk about something even if it isn't relevant, but I don't care. Maybe you guys would think it's interesting. You can buy a book about this thing. It's official, if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. What I understand, the book's incredibly weird. But let's go into the video I want to talk about. So overall, this is a show premise that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not really that interesting. It's actually stolen from a Disney failed pilot, so that shows you how great it was to begin with. And at the end of the day, you probably should put passion in other things and maybe try drawing frames yourself rather than just writing 70 scripts, and make a better premise while you're at it. That's all I gotta say. Bye for now. The premise is pulled straight out of Children of the Corn. Well, a similar premise where kids rule. It's existential horror, but this guy thinks it's a normal thing for a kid's show. You see, the Mysterious Mr. Enter, or John, made a commentary on one of his episodes. I wouldn't really call this a commentary, it's mostly just bitching about how people don't understand his premise, because his premise is shit, but let's get into it.
It follows an average family of four, the Dunn.
Well, I'm already done with this premise.
The pilot, in terms of shows, is actually a really bad idea. Like, pilots are a really, really bad way of showcasing a television show.
What? What are you talking about?
If you don't know and are living under a rock, a pilot is a very important aspect of a TV show. It is the pitch to not only the network you're selling it to, but to the audience itself. It's a ground where you build off to better episodes. It's a setup for characters and setting. How do you not like pilots? It doesn't make any sense.
At the point of the pilot, it's more or less a pitch towards the audience, and in it's supposed to establish the setting, the characters, and the tone. But it feels like it's something that belongs in the past. It's something that we've outgrown.
Ari, explain to me how an introductory episode is just bad. Because apparently he really hates him. So let's see why pilots are so terrible.
Pilot is the episode of bar none that you have to work the hardest on. And if any single episode of the show you get afterwards is worse than the pilots, that's not a good episode of the show, is it? And quite honestly, it's been a very long time since I've seen a show whose pilot episode, or even their first episode, was even in a similar league to what the show would become.
He then goes on a rant why pilots suck. If you couldn't guess, his reasoning is that pilots aren't the best episode. Okay. You really don't want the first thing to be the best. There's a reason why, even in films, the climax is supposed to be the best part of the thing, because you're building up to that, and that's what a pilot is. It's an introductory episode. People like that will get into it, and they'll get more and more what they thought was interesting there, so of course they're going to make sense that a later episode will be better than the pilot. No shit. Why is that a bad thing? The pilot helps those later episodes even exist in the first place. Do you not like beginnings of a story? Like what? I really don't understand this criticism at all. Pilots aren't that good because it can be rough around the edges. That's the whole point, you dumbass. If you don't have a pilot, how are people even going to know what the fuck your show is even about? That's the whole problem of your whole series. No one knows what the fuck it even really is, other than some weird thing where kids are controlling their parents as slaves, which is not an interesting concept. It's just fucking weird.
Suggested that I make the pilot episode a short, not just an 11 or even a 7-minute episode. People who were working with me at the time suggested that I tell something in 3 minutes, or in some tragic cases, even less. I have made a lot of mistakes in this great adventure of making my own series, and we're going to get to them sooner or later, but going around a 22-minute episode type show was not a mistake. I am very glad that I stuck to my guns on this one.
Here we get the first example of Mr. Enter not listening to people he has. He actually had people working on this thing, by the way. It wasn't just him. And they gave him a suggestion. Why don't you just start with a short? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, of course, it'd be great to actually get a full thing out there. Who wouldn't want that? But if you're starting from ground zero, like zero, you don't have funding, basically, or then some basic independent stuff, what are you going to do? Well, make a short. 2 minutes, the works. You get this base little idea out there like that, and you can build from more shorts to, wait, this short could have been part of a main episode, or build it up, until, you got a full episode there. Even just that in regard. I mean, how can you not make a short? It's not even hard. It's actually pretty easy because it's, short. I don't know how this guy is this stupid. I skip a lot here, but essentially one of the big things is complaining about not having enough time, like he's James Rolfe or something.
Because I don't have time.
and also complains a lot about, well, I don't have enough time to set up my worlds and characters. From what I understand, I only know about 4 characters. I looked into a lot of the stuff. There's a background of characters here, but it's like the main family, and that's it, from what I understand. It's some random mean girl, I guess, who's the mayor. But other than that, and even these characters have so little development from what I've seen of this show. Like, there's not a whole lot out there than the one book, but even then, there's not a lot of side characters that quote-unquote claims he needs to develop. I'm wasting the premises and stuff like that. Well, if you have enough ideas for a book, write another book and make sure you have someone proofread it. Alright? Make sure you do that.
You should definitely at least see her friends. That's April and Molly. But the episode is also about Max, so we have to deal with his acquaintances as well. That's Shelley, Niall, Nevin, Anna, and Steve. That's a dozen characters, at the bare minimum. Could you give each and every one of these characters a showcase? Sure, here's a showcase of all the characters. Don't you just love their personalities and remember all those glistening moments with them? I remember when Anna was standing by the cake. A better question is, can you showcase all these characters while telling a story? Well,
of course, we're looking at Has Been Hotel. What else would it be? This is a great comparison because even Mr. Ender compares himself to the Has Been Hotel. And there's also a lot of characters. In fact, some of the main characters in the main show barely appear in the actual pilot here. They just have minor cameos. Angel Dust, Vaggie, and of course, Alistair, who's awesome. Because the pilot is about establishing what the actual show is going to be about in the main characters, so it doesn't focus on a whole lot of them, just focus on the main ones, like Charlie. One thing the pilot doesn't do is have a whole scene about Vox's backstory of Alistair, because it makes no sense to showcase it here, because that's not what the main show is going to be about. Well, it will be a part of it, but it doesn't need to be established in the pilot, because that's not the main plot point. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you here? If you like the main characters, you want to see their acquaintances. If we don't like them, then your show failed automatically. Why would I care about the relationships from the get-go if I don't know the character in general? What the hell is that so hard to understand?
And how some cartoons like SpongeBob or Arthur went deep into how you shouldn't swear, and not giving much of a reason beyond don't. Or even worse, because I said so. Going around some more.
So I was so surprised that Mr. Ender doesn't seem to care for SpongeBob. Not just the later seasons, but in general. Like, I saw this video one time where it's like, I couldn't name that many episodes that were good in some seasons. Like, dude, I watched these seasons he's watched, and there are plenty of good episodes. There are some really bad episodes, sure, but there are plenty of good ones that even aren't part of the original series. But he's like, oh, Sailor Mouth? Well, it doesn't even know what its moral is. Sailor Mouth's a great episode, so that's why I got offended. I don't really know about the Arthur one, because I'm not really watching Arthur, but I did a lot of SpongeBob, so let's talk about this episode, and don't mind the still frame of SpongeBob pointing at the, at the nematodes are people, too. Oh, that's a classic joke. Starfish Rule. I'm sorry, now I'm just reaching, apparently Patchy the Pirate was apparently there. That's interesting. I didn't even know that. This episode has more details than I even remember anyway. The main point of this episode is, not that swearing's bad, but that a lot of people, pretty much everyone knows how to swear, but you're supposed to use it not at all in front of other people, especially in a public restaurant like the Krusty Krab. That was the main thing is it's telling jokes around it. The fact that SpongeBob and Patrick are swearing, and that even Mr. Krabs swears a crap ton. The main point is that it's just not nice to do it because swear words have this connotation to them. Even if they don't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things. So some of them are more loaded than others. So it's best just not to say it out loud in public. No, not awful to say it in general. Just don't do it in public. It's pretty basic, but the whole episode isn't even really about that. It's just more of a springboard to tell jokes around the characters swearing. Because SpongeBob isn't a moral every show, but it does feature some morals into its episodes, which is why it's great. But, yeah, he clearly missed the point of this episode, whatever.
How do you deal with the bully, for instance? Well, let's ask any other cartoon.
You know, this all could have been avoided if y'all just came to me in the very beginning.
Just can't be. A kid saying, because I said so, is definitely not going to be very well respected among their peers. There is a swearing episode, and because I picked that message, I needed to deconstruct the lesson and come up with a valid answer that would actually apply to the real world.
I honestly have no idea what his point is here. His point is, it's a bad moral to ask for parental guidance when dealing with a bully. I don't really know the whole context of the episode. I've never seen My Little Pony, but that's what it seemed like the context is like, I could have helped you outsell this problem because asking adults help for stuff is important, especially when the adult who's even in that scenario wanted to help out the little kids with their bully problem. Apparently that's a big no-no. Of course there's other ways to deal with that, but that's not a bad message. In fact, it's a good one, because some people just don't reach out. It's actually a problem even in adults. So what's the problem there, Mr. Anner? You didn't like the moral there? You had some bullying problems? We all get fucking bullied, alright? I got bullied all the time. Reaching out does fucking help you, dumbass. The biggest problem with this morals in this cartoon, is obsessed with morals in the episode. Sometimes shows don't need a moral, though it's nice to have one that is weaving in, even if it's very subtly, like I mentioned that SpongeBob Sailor Mouth episode. But this show, I don't even know what the moral could possibly be with the premise alone. If the kids are acting crazy and wild, and they're going to force their mom, who's to eat a dirty roller skate because they can, like, what morals can you get? That was in the book, by the way. That's fucking disgusting. And that's the main character they were supposed to empathize with, who's just crazy in general. Like, that's just not really funny, especially for someone who doesn't like gross out humor, which is this guy. Made a gross out joke that isn't even funny, there is no moral, so it goes against both his things. So I don't like, what can the morals possibly be about cursing? Kids do whatever the hell they want in this world, so why couldn't they curse? There doesn't seem to be any rules other than kids rule, and the kids seem to make up their own stuff, so it seems chaotic. So how can there be morals like that? That's the confusing element. He's not going to explain. He just says these are bad, but I'm going to deconstruct that. I would like to see it. I have to like. Probably I can't see it, but I'll buy all my things at Patreon. Well, I'm not doing that, so whatever.
Cartoons that did this made me mad. Well, no, they made me paranoid. They constantly made it seem like your life was all downhill the second you were not a kid anymore. Anything good you liked or did would be gone, and it would take severe consequences to keep enjoying them.
So this is the most confusing thing. Growing around, basically, when you become an adult, you are a slave to your own kids. I was always joking about that, but when does their school tenure end when they're forced to do stuff they don't want to do as an adult? I mean, you're forced to do stuff already as an adult you don't want to do. But yeah, he's complaining about other shows doing the same moral, but he's going to do the same one, except his scenario is even worse, because as a kid, he can do a lot of stuff you already could do as a kid, but now you have power. But when you become an adult, you're basically a slave to your own kids, but your kids don't know right and wrong or morals, because they, like I said, they're kids. This is why the premise doesn't make any sense. I mean, sure, some things just don't make sense, and he's going to explain why his premise works, but if you're going to do, like, he wants to do adult themes and morals and stuff like that, but just this concept alone just doesn't work on this, especially this growing up part. He was paranoid about growing up as a kid because of a TV show, but he said, don't take my TV show literally. I wouldn't live in my TV show world, but you just took another TV show's world seriously, even though at the same time it is. Growing up too fast is not a good thing. Being a kid is great. I mean, I think a lot of people can agree with that. Nostalgia is a powerful thing for a reason. However, because of the way he sets it up, it doesn't make any sense. This TV show, I didn't like when it did this because it said growing up would suck. But in my world, I'm doing basically the same thing, except it's slightly different. Factually, it's worse. That's why people are very confused and don't understand where he's coming from.
Number 2, popularity is actually important. It is important to what other people think of you. The popular people are the ones who tend to influence society and create the systems that control our lives. You have to be at least a little bit popular to win an election, don't you?
So this is the most confusing thing. Growing around, basically, when you become an adult, you are a slave to your own kids. I was always joking about that, but when does their school tenure end when they're forced to do stuff they don't want to do as an adult? I mean, you're forced to do stuff already as an adult you don't want to do. But yeah, he's complaining about other shows doing the same moral, but he's going to do the same one, except his scenario is even worse, because as a kid, he can do a lot of stuff you already could do as a kid, but now you have power. But when you become an adult, you're basically a slave to your own kids, but your kids don't know right and wrong or morals, because they, like I said, they're kids. This is why the premise doesn't make any sense. I mean, sure, some things just don't make sense, and he's going to explain why his premise works, but if you're going to do, like, he wants to do adult themes and morals and stuff like that, but just this concept alone just doesn't work on this, especially this growing up part. He was paranoid about growing up as a kid because of a TV show, but he said, don't take my TV show literally. I wouldn't live in my TV show world, but you just took another TV show's world seriously, even though at the same time it is. Growing up too fast is not a good thing. Being a kid is great. I mean, I think a lot of people can agree with that. Nostalgia is a powerful thing for a reason. However, because of the way he sets it up, it doesn't make any sense. This TV show, I didn't like when it did this because it said growing up would suck. But in my world, I'm doing basically the same thing, except it's slightly different. Factually, it's worse. That's why people are very confused and don't understand where he's coming from. So, yeah, I do know where the hell this guy's coming from in this regard. Popularity means something if you're a politician or an actor or on YouTube. That's about it. In real life, who the fuck gives a shit if you're popular or not? You do need to become popular if you want to make money in certain fields, but that's very minuscule jobs for a lot of people. Like, even some politicians don't even need to be popular for some certain fields. It's mostly just governors and even just presidential stuff. Sometimes some election people don't even know what the hell they're voting for. Just vote for the party that they want. So that's it. Popularity in actors, Yeah, sometimes people can get popular based off nepotism anyway, meaning they didn't even get genuinely popular, just they're promoted through something else. So even then, that case, it can be slid around. And YouTube, yeah, you can't really get that without cheat, unless, you're buying bots, which is illegal. Is it illegal? I don't know. Well, you can get banned from YouTube, so that's all that matters. So popularity really isn't that all important, unless you're doing certain things. And the session with trying to get popular, it can be a bad thing when you're looking for numbers rather than actual genuine human connections, or just worrying about more important things in life rather than how many people worship you. And that's the whole idea of these morals and shows. They make perfect sense. It can be fun if you somehow get popularity, but it's not all the end all be all. People still have suffered depression even when they're super popular and can still do things that doesn't make any sense, despite the fact that they have thousands of fans. Popularity isn't the end-all be-all, much like how money is the end-all be-all. So the idea of the actual kids cartoon teaching you that actually being popular is incredibly important is stupid.
Or you're telling me that you really think that this kind of show is the kind of show to give the message, it's okay to grow up and be an adult? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, I do. In fact, this concept in this show is the best place to teach that moral. If I can sell kids on it being okay to be an adult here, in my world, then it's sold to them everywhere else. But I thought that the premise of Throwing Around was a very easy one to understand. It just sounds like a standard cartoon premise. At the very least, I expected it to be a lot easier than some people have had with it. It's just a role reversal story, people. But a lot of people thought the characters in the show would have, Benjamin Button syndrome, in which they age backwards. The characters don't. The characters age up. And a lot of the difficulties in making this series is figuring out exactly how seriously to take all these questions.
Well, as someone who's nitpicks cartoons for a living, like he does, you should know that this is eventually going to happen. People have nitpicked tons of cartoon worlds. Some, like the Cars one, for example, mostly from the Cars 2 movie. Not only Cars 1, but Cars 2 ended up adding a lot of people's questions. Like, how does this work in this world? How is there Catholicism in the Cars world? Was there a car Jesus? That's the stuff you got to answer when you add certain elements to it. And his premise adds a lot of weird questions because the world, like I said, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why would the adults let the kids rule, especially if it sounds like they don't like it? Like, he doesn't describe them being happy, other than the one dad who just seems like a fucking doofus. So that's why people have problems with your premise. So let's see what else he has problems with.
Basic facts.
Like this
people
that
grow up and get older, basically
right
on our screens. So people would stop asking us, you don't read the Silmarillion before you read Lord of the Rings. That'd be completely stupid. And it'd be completely stupid to expect to get that before you read Lord of the Rings. That was one of the mistakes of the first pilot I wrote.
I love this guy calls people stupid for wanting to watch something in a particular order. Like, what a dick. What if someone wanted to read Silmarillion, I can't even say it, before Lord of the Rings? Like, get the fuck out of here. Plus, The Hobbit comes in between both of those, so fuck you, dude. But yeah, sometimes it's nice just to have a great basic premise explained. You can even do that in your intro. A lot of cartoon intros actually do that. The Danny Phantom intro is one that comes to mind where it explains the origin, so you get the little people caught up to it. I mentioned Hazbin Hotel, and they do that in the actual official show of a little basic premise stuff. Even if it's entirely necessary, it gets people caught up to speed. Just a little nice thing. It's not necessary, but it's a nice thing to do. So calling someone stupid for wanting that makes you seem like a jackass, which you kind of are.
I have to. It's not optional. It's something that I have to explain how pedophiles work in my show that is aimed at children. I don't have to explain why this is the stupidest request that I've ever gotten, right? To be...
This is the actually only valid point he's had, but it's funny that people have actually asked him that. I guess mostly because the show premise is so weird and so unnatural that people are like, well, how does that work? But obviously, it is kind of a dumb question in the face of it, but at the same time, your show makes that little sense, so what else would you expect?
My world and how it works, and you absolutely demand to know what it is if you think it's going to be important to enjoying the show. The one answer you're going to get is read the scripts. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. If you're interested in finding the answers, then you might be interested in the show. If you're not, you're probably just messing with me. And I have literally no reason to assume that you're not.
So, some people aren't really interested in reading scripts because your world building's already terrible and the premise is already stupid. They're asking questions so make it clear up a bit. But no, go out of your way to read these scripts for something that you're not interested in that much. Well, I'm kind of interested in it. Just to figure out what the fuck this is even about. And it's kind of hard to even find the scripts nowadays. So, yeah. But if not, you're obviously a fucker. Fuck you, dude. No, your show premise sucks, dude. You gotta explain it better. Jeez Louise. Take some constructive criticism once in your life.
In which, at some point, younger people are just going to replace you at your work, and society's basically just going to boot you to the side. That sounds like a horrifying world. And I'm like, open your eyes, dumbass. You live in that world already. It's on a lot slower of a timescale, but yeah, in your life, in your real world life, someone younger and with more energy and new ideas than you is going to replace you doing whatever you're doing now.
The big difference between retiring in the real world and whatever it is in the made-up world is that you automatically start out with a job and basically the best life. You have complete control. You're still a kid, have all the free boundaries, you have your parents as slaves, but then you lose pretty much everything at 18, which is usually in the real world is when you actually get to start being an adult, which means you based owning stuff. Now you lose all that for the rest of your life. And that's a lot of your life, actually. Like, 70 years is the average human lifespan, so pretty much for, like, 60 years of your life, you're basically a slave to your kid. And in real life, you get replaced. By that point, you're old, and you basically are like, fuck this, I get to retire, meaning you don't have to do anything. You're not a slave to your fucking kids. Well, I guess you could be, but that's beside the point. That's not a main thing. So you kind of miss the whole premise of the real life. You don't know what the premise of real life is.
Piece of criticism was people saying that they'd kill themselves if they lived in the world going around. Like, that was a problem with the concept or something. Like, planning a vacation spot is the same thing as planning a fantasy series.
You then go on a rant by you just want to live in any fictional worlds, which, come on, there's some fictional worlds that are pretty cool. Like, get the fuck out of here. That's all I can say about that aspect. But, no, this is confusing, because earlier he said that he wants to make an ideal version of aging up, but now he's like, I don't want to live in my own world? What is it? Honestly, he's fucking lying on his ass right here. Like, oh, technically it would be very dangerous. Yeah, but some of these worlds you would have wouldn't be the same physics and stuff like that. So why does it matter that much? You're just using this as a cope because you know that your premise is shit, but you like it anyway. Oh, we actually get an animatic near the end? Wow! The joke's terrible. It's just still a joke from The Simpsons, but worse. For some reason, they have a lot of freckles. Like, it's like everything bagel. Like, geez Louise, it's not how people with freckles look. The joke is the girl's like, are we there yet? But she's driving, which I don't trust a child driver, to be honest. Like, what the fuck are the adults just casually sitting in the back? She almost kills somebody, too. Like, what the fuck? Oh, and that's it. That's pretty much the whole pilot. It's been 10 years, still haven't gotten really anything else. This sucked. Do you want to see this show? No? Well, you can buy the book. Hey, did you know I have a book? In fact, I have multiple books. They're available on Amazon. There should be a link in the description. However, I do have the digital versions on my Patreon, so if you want to support me and read what I have written, they're mostly kids' books, but you might enjoy it. After all, we all like SpongeBob, or whatever your video you're watching. I might reuse this clip. Then you can make sure to check it out. And thank you.